Hello. Okay, hopefully everyone can hear me. We had some tech issues last time, so hopefully that's all sorted and it's okay. But I'm just keeping a look at my streaming and checking that the video is being streamed correctly. But if there are any sort of tech issues, do let me know in the chat if you can't hear me. That would be really great. And yeah, okay, let's get started with today's lesson. So yeah, today we're doing what should have been last week's lesson, since the stream didn't come through. And we're looking at AI in games and simulations. So we have a really cool lesson for today. We're going to look at some really cool stuff that you guys may have not seen before, with regards to the use of AI in games and simulation. And I have some pictures up here on the first slide that are a bit abstract. You guys may not be able to recognize what these images represent. But yeah, that's okay. We'll talk about all these different applications and what they mean. But let's first of all just think about what AI in games actually means, right? What do I mean by AI in games? So what I'm talking about is the application of artificial intelligence in stuff like video games and board games, right? So making AI players that are really, really good at video games or really, really good at your favorite board games, such as chess or Go or Monopoly or really any game you can think of. Someone has probably made an AI that can play it too. So today we're going to look at that stuff as well as AI in simulations. And what we mean by simulations is actually it's very similar to AI in games. And what we're talking about there is teaching AI to do human stuff, such as teaching an AI to walk inside of a simulation or teaching an AI to box. And that's what this image here shows. It's a bit abstract. You probably can't tell that that's what that is. But that's an AI that someone has made to teach AI to box, right? So the two stick figures are trying to box against each other. So we're going to talk all about that today, about how AIs can learn to play games and the strategies that are involved in creating those types of AIs. So yeah, we have a really cool lesson today, looking at that stuff. And then for anyone who's new to this series and this is the first lesson that they're watching in AI, hi, my name is Caterina. I study computer science and AI at the University of Edinburgh, and this series is all about beginners AI. So it's non-practical, like non-mathsy. It's really supposed to be very much a beginner's guide to AI for anyone that's interested. You know, anyone in secondary school who wants to know a little bit more about AI. Even if you don't know much about computer science, that's completely okay. And yeah, every lesson we're just looking at a different application of AI. So yeah, AI in games and simulations is what we're looking at today. Cool. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. And the first thing I want to talk about is why do we even get AIs to learn games? Because that might be something that you guys are thinking about. You know, why would we bother to make an AI learn a video game or a board game? Why is that important? I think that's a question a lot of people have. It might seem like something superficial, but actually, I have written 4 good reasons why it's actually a lot more important than people think. So the first one is just complexity and challenge. So a lot of board games and just games in general are very hard for computers to learn to play. It's not something easy to learn. So it offers a really high level of challenge for AI systems to learn to play a game such as chess or Go. And often it's a benchmark in the industry that people are really interested and really want to get to, right? So if we go back like 80 years and we look at computer science history, researchers then in the field then really wanted to teach AIs to play chess, right? That was something that was seen as this big obstacle that computers seemingly would never be able to reach. So it's really a sort of benchmark thing that people are interested in getting to and seeing. And, you know, pushing these boundaries of AI, and, you know, creating more and more sophisticated computers which are able to solve these cool problems like playing chess or playing Go. And the second one is just transferable skills, right? So you may think that teaching an AI to play chess is not going to be helpful to other problems, but actually you'd be surprised, right? Because a lot of the tactics that you need to be able to be good at chess, whether you're a human or an AI, right, they involve pattern recognition and decision making, you know, strategy, and a lot of these are transferable skills that AIs can learn, and then they can be adapted in different domains such as finance or healthcare. So it's a lot more important than people think for AIs to learn games. And the third one is pretty simple, right? It's just engaging public attention, because games are cool, right? Everyone wants to see an AI play their favorite video game or their favorite board game. It grabs people's attention, and so it's helpful for researchers because it can just get people more involved and interested in the field. And the last one is just improving the games themselves, because often the AI is actually able to surpass human abilities. And sometimes we can learn something from the AI itself. And we'll talk a little bit about that later when we talk about AI in the game of Go, which you may or may not have played before. I haven't played it before, but I have become familiar with it after today. And hi, for the person in the chat asking, are you going to make up for last week's lesson? Yes, that is what we're doing now. So today we're looking at AI in games and simulation. So we're redoing last week's lesson since we had streaming issues. And yeah, so that is what we're doing today. We're doing last week's session. So you guys still get to see all the content that we created for this, because it's really, really cool session. So hopefully you guys enjoy. Do let me know if there are streaming issues again, though, in the chat, and I'll make sure to try to fix those. Cool. Okay, so we've looked at some of the reasons why it's so cool and important to get AIs to learn games. So let's start and actually look at how AIs have learned games in the past and the history of AI in games. So the beginnings really was AI in chess, and I covered this just a few seconds ago, right? We talked about how people really wanted to get computers to learn chess and that this just seemed impossible at the time. But as you guys probably know, right, we do have systems now that can beat grandmasters in chess. But it was a long way to get there, right? So, and there were a lot of AIs that were created that were unable to beat grandmasters. There were a lot of test AIs that were made before we even got there. But compared to other games, AI in chess is actually kind of more straightforward. And the reason for that is because if you're a good chess player, which I certainly am not, but if you're a grandmaster or an amazing chess player, you may know that the way that those people are so good is that they're thinking lots and lots of steps ahead. So I'm not a huge expert. I think they're thinking maybe 10, 14 steps ahead. It's something around in that ballpark of how far ahead they're able to think. But essentially, it's a bit like this sort of tree diagram that you can see in the second picture, right? Is what people are thinking in their head who are good at chess. Is they're just imagining the whole board play out just in advance, is effectively how it works. So all that researchers did is essentially do that, but with AIs. So it's sort of the same tree as how an AI is thinking, in the same way as humans, is they're thinking several moves ahead of, okay, if I play this move, then they'll play this move, and just picking the move that seems like the best. So in some senses, it's a pretty straightforward thing to do because it's simply about just checking all the possibilities and then playing the move that seems best. But then when we get to games such as Go, it started to get more complicated. So Go was a game that was really seen as the biggest challenge for AI to ever play. And in fact, for a long time, people thought that, okay, maybe AI can learn to play chess, but AI will never learn to play Go. And that's because for every move that you play in Go, I think it's something like 300 or more possible moves that a player can play. The amount of moves you can play is just immense. And it's just impossible for human players to be thinking that many moves ahead, or for an AI to be thinking that many moves ahead. And whilst, as we said, chess is a lot more about how far you can think ahead, a game like Go is thought to be a lot more instinctive, and world champion players in Go are a lot more creative, and there's a lot of subtlety involved in what the right move is to play. It's not the same as chess, where it's a lot more sort of mathematical about what's the best move to play. And so it was just thought that it would be impossible for an AI to take that same approach because it was thought that there was a sort of inherent creativity necessary for an AI to learn and become good at a game such as Go. But again, we were proved wrong by Google DeepMind's AlphaGo, which was an AI program that was made to play the board game Go, and it defeated the world champion in 2016. And the way that it learnt was very different from what we talked about with chess, of just basically considering every single possibility. So it learnt by playing against itself. And you guys may have heard of this idea of just an AI learning by itself. Maybe you've heard of that vague notion before of reinforcement learning is what it's called in the field. And we're just going to talk about that now and how that works and how that eventually led to these amazing breakthroughs of teaching an AI to play Go and other complex games such as that. So to teach you guys about this concept, we're gonna think about the game Breakout and give an easy example with the game Breakout. I don't know if you guys have heard about this game. Me personally, growing up, I always called this Brick Breaker, not Breakout. But okay, I have a video here. I'll just show you guys what it looks like, and you probably recognize it, right? It's quite a straightforward game. Basically, you're just trying to get the ball on the platform. Yeah, and then you're just trying to destroy as many bricks as possible. Okay, very straightforward game. So let's think about how we would teach an AI to play this with reinforcement learning. So how it works is very similar to how you might learn to play this game if you just picked it up and you knew nothing about it at all. So the AI starts by knowing nothing, and it just learns by playing the game many, many times. And then it receives a reward when it plays a good move, and then it receives a penalty when it plays a bad move. Now, what good moves are and what a bad move is normally defined by the person making the AI themselves. So, for example, you might say that a good move is the ball hits lots and lots of bricks before returning to the platform. And then a bad move might be something like, obviously, the ball doesn't hit the platform and the game ends, or the game ends early, something like that. It's pretty straightforward what you can imagine what a reward might be and what a penalty might be. And basically, it just keeps trying, right? It tries different actions and it observes what happens. It observes what actions are getting it more rewards and what are getting it more penalties. And then it just gets better and better in a very human-like way as how we might learn to get better at a game. So we're going to look at the video and see what happens over time. So we can see this is after 100 training episodes. It's okay, but it's missing the ball quite a lot. Not doing so great. Sort of a very beginner human player, you would imagine. But it's going to start to get better. So you can see now it's still missing the ball sometimes, but it's moving a lot. It's moving the platform a lot faster. It's learning to get into control of the ball. Okay, so again, doing much better. It's not dropping the ball anymore. It's learned that moving fast seems to work, and it's trying to get some speed on the ball, it seems. And now what we see, what this reads is, at this point, the agent, or the AI, finds and exploits the best strategy of tunneling and then hitting the ball behind the wall. So we'll see that now it's actually learned a strategy on its own. So have a look at what it's learnt. So now you can see that it's gotten very advanced, and now it's probably doing better than, an average human player who's maybe not great at this game. It's taught itself that tactic, just by chance, just by trying things and seeing that this seemed to work and this seemed to hit the most bricks. So hopefully that gives you an idea, or helps you to begin to understand how reinforcement learning works and how an AI can become skilled at a game such as Breakout and sometimes even surpass human players. And we're going to talk about, we're going to show you guys other examples of reinforcement learning. So something that I want you guys to think about is whether this approach to learning can lead to creativity. Can it create moves that even humans wouldn't think of playing, or something really original? And what I want you guys to watch now, and I'll play for you guys, is the world champion of Go's reaction to a move played by AlphaGo, which was the AI we were talking about before that was developed by Google. So this is a really good documentary that I really, really recommend watching. It's amazing. You can find it on YouTube, and it's all about the development of AlphaGo and the journey to beating the world champion at Go. Amazing documentary. And this was my favorite bits that I'm going to play for you guys. I'm going to just play you guys like a small 2-minute clip from it. And I'm just going to set the scene for you guys of what's happening because it's right in the middle of the documentary. So it's right in the middle of the second match. The world champion is currently losing. The match is not going great. He's losing against the AI, and he's just gone out to take like a small break to clear his mind. And he's coming back onto the table. And he's seeing the next move that the AI has played whilst he was out and he was gone and he was taking his break. So this is his reaction to this move that's been played. So let me play that for you guys.
I want to see Lee Sedal when he sees this move. He's back. Leah's back.
알파고는 기실은 뭐 확률적 계산을 하고 그냥 이기기 위한 그런 머신에 불과하다고 생각을 했었는데 그 수를 보는 순간 아니구나. 충분히 알파고도 창의적이다. 정말 아름답고 바둑의 그런 아름다움을 잘 표현한 수고 굉장히 창의적인 수였다.
Normally he think about 1-2 minutes, no more. But this time he think more than 12 minutes. The more I see this move, I feel something changed. Maybe for human we think it's bad, but for AlphaGo, why not?
Go is like geopolitics, like something small that happens here can have a ripple effect, hours down the road in a different part of the board. The game kind of turned on its axis at that moment.
This move is very special because with this move, all the stone played before is work together. It's connect. It looks like a network, link everywhere. It's very special, very special.
다시 한번 생각해보는 측면이 됐다는 게 그것이 포인트가 아니었나 싶은데 바둑에 있어서 창의성이라는 건 도대체 무엇인가? 이런 또 의문. 하여튼 굉장히 의미 있는 수가 아니었나.
This is a tough game for Lee Sedol. AlphaGo is just not letting Lee Sedol do what he wants.
Right.
Black has almost 60 points. Oh, that's a lot.
That's not.
Okay, so hopefully you guys were able to see that. Yeah, so that was my favorite clip from the documentary. I really liked seeing that clip. And I think what's interesting about it, right, is that it's the world champion of the game, right, the best player in the world. And he seems to be shocked by this machine, shocked by the move that it's picked, and shocked by its creativity, and almost seems to think that he's learned something, right? He believes he's learned something from seeing this move. He says that he sees Go in a new light after seeing the move that the AI has played. And is really questioning whether this AI is able to actually be creative and it's not just a probability calculation. So I think that's the interesting thing about reinforcement learning and the idea of an AI just learning from scratch. But yeah, so that was just a clip I wanted to show you guys, for you guys to think about this idea of whether AI's learning in this way can lead to a creativity similar to world-class players in a game. Cool. Okay, so that's what we were talking about with games. Now we're going to think a little bit about simulations, which is very closely related to games, which is why I put them together. And I'm sure you guys have heard about the concept of a simulation, right? But the idea of AI simulations is just creating a virtual environment where we can get AIs to learn certain skills or behaviors, such as learning to walk or to box. And that's what some of these images here show. So I talked briefly at the beginning about the image of the AIs boxing, and that's exactly what we have here. So it's two AIs which have been taught to box, and I'll show you guys a video of how that worked as well. It's sort of similar to the reinforcement learning that we were talking about. And in fact, that's what we're going to see in the next clip, which is of an AI learning to walk, which is another example of reinforcement learning. So we talked about reinforcement learning with breakouts, and the idea is very similar in a simulation. So we create a virtual world with a virtual character, and then the AI is given a task of learning to walk, right? In this case, of learning to control the movements of a character. And like in the previous thing, it'll get feedback and receive rewards when it does well, and penalties when it does badly. And we're going to see that in the video that we watch. It'll be something like getting rewards for the AI standing on 2 feet, and getting penalties when its back touches the ground, that sort of thing. And you'll see as we watch the video, although I'm not going to play it all because it is quite a long video, we're only going to watch maybe like about half of it, but it is really cool, so I do want you guys to see how the AI learns, but we'll see that it gradually improves and it gradually does learn how to walk. But we'll also see that often it sort of finds shortcuts. It's very similar to humans actually. It sort of tries to cheat and sort of walk, but not in the way that we wanted it to learn to walk as an AI. So I'm going to play that clip for you guys because it really illustrates the concept of reinforcement learning really well. And I will also say that there's a lot of videos that you can find on YouTube of these sorts of simulations of everything from boxing to, I don't know, to hide and seek, to walking, anything you can think of for your favorite game or your favorite anything. There's probably an AI simulation out there on YouTube that you can find. So I really recommend you guys go and check it out, and because they're really cool and you might learn something and maybe be interested in how it was implemented in more detail. So we're gonna have a look at that now. Okay, so hopefully you guys get the gist. I'm not going to show you the whole thing because it is quite long, but yeah, I have posted the name of it in the chat. So yeah, feel free to watch the whole thing yourself because it's really interesting. And I will say that that actual YouTube channel itself has a lot of other really cool, interesting videos where they do similar things and they teach the AI to do lots of other stuff. So I really recommend checking that out and seeing all the other cool stuff that it can learn to do. Okay, cool. So hopefully that gave you guys another example of how reinforcement learning can be used to teach AI to do things. And you might have seen in the video how the AI is sort of not learning to walk in the way that we wanted it to. So it tries to crawl and it tries to do the worm. And we have to keep defining new rewards and new penalties to make sure that it's learning in the right way. And that's often a struggle with creating AI systems, is getting the AI to do what we want it to do when it's so open-ended, right? And it can basically do what it wants. So creating these reward and penalty functions that are crafted well and gets the result that we want. So we're going to look at another example quickly, which is a boxing simulation. Again, similar to the walking, but I just thought I'd show you guys because, again, it's just lots of different examples of simulations being used. And I think this one's really cool. So yeah, this is the beginning. We can see that it's not doing the best job. It's sort of that's not boxing, right? But then over time, it does start to learn. And we'll see that. So here they're learning to stand in place. So no boxing yet, just trying to balance and not fall over. And you can see that's after 130 million steps that they're still just not even boxing, just trying to balance, similar to the video, right, where they just kept not being able to stand in place. But we'll see that over time, if we just skip forward a little bit, right, they learn to move around. So they're sort of starting to come to grips with how footwork works. But still, this is not boxing. They're not making any contact. So we move to stage 3 and they're starting to learn to punch. So finally, they're making contact, as we can see. Cool. Okay, so doing much better. Okay, and now they're actually learning proper boxing tactics. So you can see that by now, this really does look like boxing, or at least it's starting to look like boxing, right? It's just stick figures. But yeah, the interesting thing is that they haven't been taught these tactics. They haven't been taught to avoid or to block. They've just learned this organically, just with their, receiving rewards and receiving penalties. In here, we would assume that the reward might be something like standing upright and making contact with the other player, and then a penalty would be getting hit by the other player or falling over. And yeah, you can see that they are slowly starting to incorporate this stuff into their tactics, and that's how they end up with being able to actually properly box. Obviously as stick figures, but that's still boxing in a way, in a simulation. Yeah, okay, cool. So that was some examples of simulations, but as I said, there's so many more out there on YouTube and all over the place to watch that are developed by all sorts of people that you can check out. I've seen a lot of really cool ones. And there's also a lot of simulations for animals, so imitating animal behavior. I saw one with gibbons or something trying to grab onto items and just simulating all sorts of behavior. It's really, really cool. So I recommend, having a look at those. I'm interested to know, now that we have our Q&A, so feel free to ask questions if you want. But I'm also interested to know if you guys have a favorite one out of the things we covered today. So we looked at chess, Go, boxing, AI learning to walk, breakout. I just would like to know which one you guys found the most interesting, or the application that maybe you think has the most use. But as we said, a lot of these may not have a direct practical use, except that they're just cool to see. But then they can just be transferred. A lot of these skills are transferable. Someone says the AI learning to walk was so funny. Yeah, it is quite funny to watch, isn't it? Because you just see it failing so miserably at the beginning. I think with the boxing as well, at the beginning, it just looks really silly, where it's just falling over. But then you see how quickly it learns, right? At the beginning, it looks completely pathetic, but then after it's been trained quite a while, it can actually, surpass human level. And that's the same with chess and Go, where at the beginning, the AIs make mistakes that not even the most basic human player would make. Because it's learning from complete scratch like a baby, but then it learns everything just from getting it wrong so many times, purely through trial and error, right? Very much like humans, sort of practice makes perfect. So yeah, the AI learning to walk is really cool. I did have a few more things to cover today, but I didn't fully manage to fit it in, so I think we're going to talk about it next week when we talk about AI robots. Because that content's going to be really cool. So we're going to talk about all sorts of things. There's actually quite a lot of content, so I don't know if I might have to split it up into 2 lessons because I want to talk about, obviously, of course, driverless cars, but also Mars rover and some other random stuff like RoboCop and whatnot. All sorts of cool applications of AI and robotics. So today was sort of the software, sort of video games and games, board games, simulations, all inside the computer, but next week we're going to talk about actually building robots that, you know, physically exist, and the AI behind that. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's lesson. If you guys have any questions, make sure to post them in the chat now. If not, I will end the live stream, but I'll just wait if anyone does have any questions. Someone says bye. Hopefully you enjoyed today's lesson, and make sure to come next week. So we're going to be running this session at the same time next week, so 4 p.m. as usual. And yes, we will have an extra session to make up for the one that we lost last week. So this is lesson 4, and then we have 4 more lessons left. So we're right in the middle, and we have 4 more lessons and content that we're going to cover, looking at 4 more applications of AI. Cool. So if anyone doesn't have any questions, we're done for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed looking at AI in games and simulations. And yeah, I'll see you guys next week where we're going to talk about robots, which is going to be really cool. So yeah, doesn't seem like anyone has any questions. So I'll end the stream. Lovely to see everyone, and I'll see you guys next